Yes, we are live now.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So from wherever you all are tuning in for, first, let me begin this by wishing everybody an International Women's Day, a day to celebrate rights, justice, and action. And today we are here with a webinar, our first one for this year. So it's a good way to start the year on women, mercury, and artisanal and small-scale gold mining. We'll be talking about the reflections on the outcomes of the Minamata Convention COP6. But before we go and talk to the panelists, who they are, we will be looking at some of the house rules for setting the tone for this webinar. So some basic house rules. Please mute your mic upon joining the webinar. To also accommodate more inclusive participation, we also have interpretation provided in French and Spanish. So if you do go on your panel below, you will see this icon. And if you click on that, you should be able to have the option to choose from either of these interpretation services for today. There is also in the column below a Q&A box. So please use the Q&A feature to post your questions, and our panelists will be accommodating some of those questions where relevant. You also have a chat box. So please use the chat box to introduce yourself and tell us where you are joining us for today. And if you have a question or a query or a comment, please also feel free to use the chat service. And also to share that this webinar for today is being live streamed on our YouTube channel. So you're also free to share this beyond today to your networks and other colleagues who may or may not have been able to join due to time difference or just because of conflicting other agendas. So with that, let's get on with our webinar for today. So before we go to the introducing the panels, I wanted to share with you all why we are gathered today. Today, like we said, is also the International Women's Day celebration, which we had on Sunday, but also it's a very timely opening as we are also seeing the 70th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, the CSW, as they are organizing themselves in New York. The webinar today, the discussion we'll be having, will also be sharing the outcomes of the 6th meeting of the Conference of the Party to the Minamata Convention on Mercury, COP6, which took place last year in November in 2025. We will also be sharing key highlight activities by the Secretariat about what they and the parties would be carrying out to address the biennium 2026 to 2027 decision of the COP6. What we will also be doing, as the topic suggests, that we will be reflecting on this year's IWD and CSW 70 theme, as we also want to relate rights, justice, and action to addressing the gender dimensions of the artisanal small-scale gold mining sector. And we will be also introducing and amplifying our work and how all of you can engage and strengthen and be part of the Women's Caucus of the Minamata Convention on Mercury. So with that, let me have the great honor to also welcome our panelists who are joining us today from all corners of the world. So from the Secretariat, I'm very happy to give a warm welcome to Lara, who's the legal officer and gender focal point from the Secretariat of the Minamata Convention on Mercury. Lara, thank you so much for joining us. She has also been coordinating the gender activities since November 2020 and is the Secretariat's representative in the network of MEAs, the Multilateral Environmental Agreement Gender Focal Points established by UNEP in December 2020. Also with us on this panel is Anna from MSP Institute. She's the project manager of the Institute and works on gender and chemicals, including the Gender and Chemicals Partnership, which MSP Institute serves as a secretariat. To also grounding the work that we've been doing and why this topic is very important, we also have two amazing other speakers who will be really contextualizing today's session, which is a warm welcome to Yuyun from IBAN and from Nexus 3 Foundation. She's the co-founder of Nexus 3 Foundation and the co-chair of IBAN. She is based in Indonesia, working towards a just, toxic-free, and sustainable future. She has dedicated her career to understand the impacts of chemicals on women. With over 25 years of experience, Yuyun has developed a deep understanding of the complex issues surrounding chemicals and their effect on women's health. And another warm welcome to Mona, who is also the gender focal point of Planet Gold Global. She's a knowledge management coordinator. So with that, thank you all very much for joining us. And hopefully it's going to be another interesting webinar for all of us to be part of, but also learning and sharing together. So with that, to building the baseline of where we are starting from, Lara, I want to go to you to just share with us some of the reflections, some of the discussions, and some of the key decisions that the 𝗀𝗃 took on addressing these issues. So with that, Lara, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tina, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Greetings from Geneva. I am connecting from the seat of the Secretariat here in Geneva. And as Tina mentioned, I would like to give you an overview just to set the scene of what are the key outcomes of 𝗀𝗃 that was held last year. As it relates to the work of the caucus, but also to the issues of ASGM and indigenous people and women's health, and as part of the outcome of the COP last year. So if you go to the next slide, please. This is just an overview, a few pictures of our COP last year in November, when we had more than 800 in-person participants here in Geneva, but we also had an online connection with 4,000 viewers connected to the sessions of the COP. We had several events organized at the margins of the COP, including the launch of the Women's Caucus in November last year, which was one of the highlights of the COP and of the events that were organized around the COP. And we had 135 parties represented at the COP, and a great number of observers, UN agencies, women's groups, but also indigenous people groups and other organizations that are active in the field of mercury. So now, moving on to the next slide, I've put together a list of the 22 decisions that were adopted by our COP last year, but in particular, I would like to focus here on 3 of them. If you maybe hit next, you will see them highlighted. Anyway, they are decision 𝗀𝗃 on artisanal and small-scale gold mining, and the review of the implementation Article 7. Then decision 15 on strengthening effective engagement with indigenous people as well as local communities, and decision 16 on addressing health concerns of women and children. So now moving on to the next slide. Okay, so you see here there is a link to the decision 8 on ASGM and the review of implementation of Article 7. All decisions are now available in English on our website, so you're welcome to access the full decision on our website. But here I would like to highlight that parties adopted amendments to the guidance on developing national action plans for ASGM under Article 7 of the Convention, and that represented a meaningful advancement in guiding implementation for parties to reduce or eliminate mercury use in ASGM. And specifically, the amendments will enable parties to review and strengthen their reduction or phase out targets for mercury use in ASGM. And it also affords parties opportunities to further engage indigenous people, women, youth, and other stakeholders in the process. The COP requested to the Secretariat to develop a report to COP7, our next COP, in 2027, to explore how supply chain transparency and certification mechanism could help reduce mercury use and enhance accountability among buyers and intermediaries. So this is an upcoming activity, and my colleague Richard Gutierrez is also connected to this webinar. In case you have questions on the implementation of this decision, Richard and I are available. Now, moving on to the next slide, which is on decision 15 on strengthening the engagement of with indigenous people as well as local communities. In this decision, COP6 builds on the work initiated under COP5 and encouraged a strengthened and effective engagement of indigenous people and local communities in the work of the convention, particularly those from regions disproportionately impacted by mercury pollution. And the decision highlights some activities to be carried out during the 2026-2027 biennium. These include seeking advice from indigenous people and local communities through indigenous peoples organizations accredited to the convention, local communities organizations accredited to the convention, and also the International Indigenous Peoples Forum on Mercury, on potential measures for strengthening their effective engagement in the work of the convention. Another important highlight of the decision is the establishment of voluntary contributions to the Special Trust Fund, where parties, other governments, and stakeholders in a position to do so are invited to provide financial and in-kind support to enable the effective participation of indigenous peoples and in local communities in meetings and activities under the convention. So the Secretariat will invite offers to support and receive offers to support this work and facilitate the engagement of parties in providing such contributions to the Special Trust Fund. And now in the next slide, the last decision I would like to highlight in my presentation. If you can go to the next slide, please. It's decision 16 on addressing health concerns of women and children. Here, the COP invited parties to continue the implementation of the Gender Action Plan, which was welcomed at the previous COP, COP5, and also identified a number of priority activities to be carried out by parties and by the Secretariat during this biennium. So moving on to the next slide, here is just a quick reminder of our Gender Action Plan, which was welcomed at the COP5 in 2023 and provides a comprehensive blueprint for actions to promote gender equality within all the activities under the purview of the convention. It includes proposed actions for Secretariat, parties, and other stakeholders. And the mechanism is that at every COP, the parties identify or select some activities that are a priority for the biennium out of the Gender Action Plan. And this helps us also highlight priorities for the biennium, but also fundraise for these activities as they have been identified as priorities for this year and next year. You can find a link to the action plan here on this slide, where you can access the full list of activities and objectives and outcomes in the plan as welcomed by our COP. In the next few slides, I provide a list of the priority activities for this biennium. I will not go through in detail through all of them. This publication is also is available on our website, but in particular, these are the first priorities for parties that have been identified, and this include, for example, providing financial resources to support the participation of representatives of the Women's Caucus in the meetings of the COP and other processes. So this is a recognition by the COP that the launch of the caucus took place and that parties are to support the functioning of the caucus. But also it includes activities related to the reviews of the national action plans under Article 7 in the sense of integrating and monitoring the implementation of strategies to prevent the exposure of vulnerable populations, including children and women. So these aspects have been highlighted as priorities by the COP6. Now, moving on to the next slide, another priority is to ensure meaningful participation of women in the delegations to the COP, for example. And for the Secretariat, if you move to the next slide, we have activities that are supposed to help parties in achieving their priorities, so supporting the work around the review of the national action plans under Article 7, so that the strategies to prevent exposure of women are further integrated in the review, and as we review the implementation of the national action plans, but also supporting the coordination of the Women's Caucus, for example, is another priority activity for the Secretariat. Moving on to the next slide, I have a few activities, for example, for the Secretariat to continue including gender consideration in the process of appraising and evaluating 𝗙CE projects. 𝗙CE is our specific international program, which is a grant-giving mechanism for parties who are able to access funding to strengthen the implementation of the convention, and has some gender considerations to be included for the funds to be released. And so now my last slide is about some information material that's been developed by the Secretariat. All these publications and resources are available on our website. We have, of course, our call to become a member of the Women's Caucus, which can be accessed through our website as well, when we have a number of publications on mercury in skin lighting products and gender equality and mercury, so on the effects of mercury exposure, in particular for women and girls, and how to mainstream gender in the implementation of specific international program projects, and so forth. We have webinars, we have Minamata Onlines on the subject, we have a course, Informia e-learning course on the Minamata Convention on mercury and gender. So there are lots of resources, and I really encourage you to visit our webpage and our website and see if you're interested in accessing these resources. So I will stop here for now, and of course I remain available if you have any further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lara, for that brief introduction to what took place in the COP6, and also looking at some of those. I think COP6 was, well, it was my first COP, but I would say I think it was still very influential, right? Because it had a very strong recognition and a welcome of the Women's Caucus, so much so that it's come on the decision. But also, like Richard is also here, and I know you've been working so hard with the inclusion and strengthening the participation of Indigenous peoples. And not only that, as you shared, there's also a very strong, growing more recognition into different elements of the Minamata work, not only just recognizing that they are important elements on gender and Indigenous peoples, but also, like you shared, on other decisions that are as relevant. And especially, I think the national reporting mechanism is a very key element to also really look into that. So thank you so very much for that, setting the tone on it. And what we will do is that Lara also shared about the Women's Caucus. For that, I will ask my co-partner in this, Anna, to share. She will share with all that information to you of what happened, what events took place, some of the key reflections from there a bit later. But with that, I would welcome Yuyun, who is from IPAN and also the co-founder of the organization that I would say 𝗀𝗙cie𝗋𝗶 Foundation is a very old in the sense that very experienced organization, and I've known you for so many years also, and really happy to have you you joining us here. So my question to you, I know you have so much of experience. You've been with the Minamata COP. You have been looking at all those other discussions also. But from your reflection, because you also have so much of, grounding the local work and the aspirations. So some of those challenges and opportunities that you feel needs to be addressed or work on this and the outcomes for protecting women, girls, and children. So with that, Yun, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Tina. And thank you for the Minamata Secretariat for organizing this, and also the Women Caucus. And thank you for the participants to spare your time to attend this webinar today. Yeah, the questions from you, Tina, is very important, because on the ground, it's different than on the paper. If we can go to the next slide, please. I just want to highlight that globally, there are more than 5 million women and children involved, probably now more than this, because the price of gold also push people to go to the mining site. And next slide, please. And studies shows that mercury in hair, especially, as the easy biomonitoring, found very high in some groups of communities. And some of them are mainly the fish eaters or fish consumers, and also communities who live in ASGM hotspots. So most of their exposures, mercury in hair and in their body, are considered very high. Next slide, please. And IPEN conducted several studies since, I can't remember, maybe 2010. And IPEN collecting hair samples from several women of childbearing age in various countries, more than 27 countries now. And it shows that more than 70% of the respondents have high mercury concentrations. And even if we use the reference level 0.58 ppm, that's already shown neurological damage in children or in the womb. Most of the respondents have high mercury concentrations. And recently, in 6 indigenous peoples communities in Latin America, also I've been found high concentrations of mercury in women of childbearing age. Next slide, please. So that shows the challenges faced by women in ASGM hotspots or in ASGM villages. Some of them involve in the activities of mining and extracting the ore. Some of them involve in selling mercury and the chemicals and other stuff for mining activities. And some of them also touching the mercury directly. And all of these pollutions created from the activities, not only by them, also affecting their family members and contaminating the food chain. So women as the front line facing double or triple challenges, because they have to earn money, but at the same time, they also expose themselves and their children and the food chain that they serve the family. So the right to live in healthy environment as the basic human rights are not seen on the ground. So it's very difficult to talk about rights to live in healthy environment in SGM hotspots. Next slide, please. And this kind of birth defects are not discussed in many papers because it's so sensitive. But I found in many places, including the bottom left from Kenya, children also born without limbs. And this is happening in many places, but very few studies conducted, because to show the correlations between and the causality between mercury and birth defects are very critical and difficult to conduct and costly. So many research or studies only shown or measures the biomonitoring in hair and in urine and also blood. So I think this kind of challenges faced by the communities, including health services. So to get help with this, to get health interventions and health services are not easy in these kind of remote areas. And that's why maternal health and postnatal and the development of children also affected due to lack of health services. Some of them delivered the baby up in the mountain. I was surprised. So when I asked someone when I went to the field, it was so sad to see how she delivered the baby on top of the hill. And then I said, how long you were there, and then when did you come down to the village down the hill? And she said it took her one week after delivering the baby to came down to her village. Can you imagine, after you deliver a baby, you're still bleeding, but you have to walk, and there is no health service over there. So these kind of challenges that we face underground, and it's not easy to advocate for this because of the nature of the activities, illegal settings, and also remote areas. It's not easy to get access by the health service and government social services. Yeah, I think I will stop right there. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you so very much for really bringing in this perspective, right? And I think there's still so much to learn. I know IPEN, I know Nexus 3 Foundation has been working on this for such a long time. And like you said, you yourself have been working for almost 2 decades. And I feel like that the information to the broader society is still lacking, at least even in our region, right? Like engagement of more civil society organizations, or even people knowing about the impacts of mercury pollution. So I really, this is an opportunity for all the participants also, like we will be sharing out, I see on the chat box, we will be sharing out these resources, the contact people of these experts. So definitely please do reach out. So thank you very much, Yuyun. And also for all the participants, please do use the chat box, the question and A, to pose any questions for the panelists. I shouldn't be taking the floor to myself, but it is an interesting discussion. And I think just on a note before I go to Mona, you talked about, right, like how do we really link the global to the local? Like there are decisions, there are this aspiration, like I'll be very honest, looking at the International Women's Day or celebration, like a lot of aspiration and commitments being talked about. But then when it really comes down to, really taking these into implementable areas gets really very challenging. It could be political, like you talked about, or just the access part of that, or even awareness raising. So I think this is just a process that we still have to keep pressing on, collaborate, share, and that was one of the purpose of us putting this webinar together. With that, I would move to invite Mona. Mona, like I said, is from the Planet Gold program, which works to make small-scale gold mining safer, cleaner, and more profitable. She's also looking at the gender perspective. So Mona, I have also questions for you. So just reflecting on this global commitment from COP6. especially for the call to continued implementation, the Minamata COP's Gender Action Plan, and the focus on the health on ASGM. Could you reinforce or also share the work that Planet Gold is doing to reduce mercury exposure for women and ASGM communities?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tina, and thanks everyone for being here. I'm very honored to be a part of this panel. So the gender responsive strategies have always been part of Planet Gold's design. So I would say that the call for continued implementation of the Gender Action Plan actually reinforces our existing work. And for those who may be unfamiliar with the Planet Gold program, it is a program that's committed to supporting country obligations under the Minamata Convention on Mercury to eliminate mercury from the gold supply chain produced by artisanal and small-scale miners. The program is built with 4 pillars: access to formal markets, access to mercury-free technologies, access to finance, and supporting efforts to formalize the sector. So integrated within those pillars, the Planet Gold program is dedicated to advancing gender inclusion and progress within the ASGM sector. The country projects work to support and create sustainable opportunities that strengthen gender inclusiveness in ASGM. But at a process level, all the country projects take several measures to ensure the active inclusion of women's voices, their expertise, and concerns in all phases of their projects, from stakeholder engagement, such as project kickoff meetings, trainings, and steering committees, to conducting gender baseline studies. In addition, the projects have specific gender-focused interventions that then enhance the participation of women in ASGM. The Global Project, which is the project that I work on, that I'm a part of with my team at NRDC, also reinforces the monitoring and data sharing objectives of the Minamata Gender Action Plan by actually collecting gender disaggregated data for all types from the project activities, such as trainings and finance mechanisms, just for a few examples, as well as on specific gender-related activities. The Global Project, then we report on these outcomes in our annual progress reports, which actually are available on the Planet Gold website. I'll share those links later in the chat. I also might have colleagues here who might share that for me. The program also produces gender-specific communication products. The country projects themselves have done, I think, an impressive job of communicating what they're doing in the field through these communication products. And we recently published a cross-program assessment report featuring case studies from projects that are now closed, but on how gender was considered as each part of the program pillars. And for last year's 𝗀𝗃, which was where I met you actually, Tina, we produced a brochure that shares best practices within the Planet Gold program. So because knowledge sharing is an important foundation of this program, the Global Project works hard to disseminate this information, resources, and outcomes, not only within the program itself and with the projects, but also to the ASGM community, hoping that the shared results and lessons are seen and where appropriate, applied perhaps on the ground by partners and others in the sector. I'll pause there.
Yeah, no, thanks, Mona. Thank you very much. And I think also you play a very crucial role, right? Because you're also supporting countries, and countries are a way that, you know, they are the ones who take the decisions at the global fora, the COPs, but they're also the ones who are actually implementing the program or finding strategies to better do that commitments at the national level. I'm also going to maybe have a follow-up question after this. I think we will have time, but thank you so very much. And I think it will be very important to see how, like you talked about, the good practices that have shown from those previous programs or projects of the Gold, Planet Gold, could also be, like you said, good practices could also be shared wider with other parties to the convention, which could play as a really good process or even sharing what they may possibly do, because sometimes that's also the challenge at the national level, including what you talked about. Will be more interesting for us to also see how that you talked about data and monitoring, which is a very key aspect, would also be going forward to also implement some of those commitments in the 𝗀𝗃 decision on gender. But again, I should give the floor back to my very dear friend here, Anna, before we get for another round of discussions. So Anna is a partner with Women4Biodiversity. We co-convened the Women's Caucus for the Minamata on Mercury. And with that, I give the floor to you, Anna, to share some of those brief things that happened at the COP and going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tina, and welcome everyone also from my side. So I would now like to briefly introduce the Women's Caucus and share some highlights of our activities at the Minamata COP6 in November last year. So the Women's Caucus for the Minamata Convention on Mercury was launched on the 17th of May last year. The caucus aims to bring together women-led organizations, gender advocates, indigenous and local leaders, and allies who are working toward a gender-responsive implementation of the convention. And it is a collaborative platform that aims to amplify women's leadership and ensure that gender equality, social inclusion, and human rights are embedded in the convention's policies and actions. But as you can see, the caucus is still relatively young, and therefore Minamata COP6 was the first conference where we officially participated. And if you could please go to the next slide. And during the conference, the Women's Caucus managed to deliver 4 statements. The first statement focused on artisanal and small-scale gold mining. We called for a review of how gender is integrated into ASGM national action plans and requested that parties report on the progress made. Our second statement addressed national reporting. We emphasized that achieving gender balance alone is not sufficient, and we therefore recommended that parties also report on gender-related activities and outcomes in the national reports. Our third statement focused on the implementation of decision MC 515 on the Gender Action Plan and on possible new activities for the next 2 years. And there we highlighted that the Gender Action Plan remains, of course, urgently needed, and expressed our concerns that it has so far been only partially implemented. And the fourth statement addressed Mercury and the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, and there we emphasized that implementing the Minamata Convention in synergy with the biodiversity framework offers an important opportunity to achieve co-benefits for human health, biodiversity, and gender equality. And our statements have been only possible thanks to the dedication and expertise of all the Women's Caucus members who helped us, the persons on site, to prepare these statements, and all statements have been shared with the Minamata Secretariat. Next slide, please. And at the middle of the conference on Wednesday, the 5th of November, we celebrated the biggest major milestone, the official launch of the Women's Caucus for the Minamata Convention on Mercury. And what can I say? The room was completely full. Some people had to stand, and the atmosphere was very festive. We were honored to have 3 excellent speakers at our panel, Miriam Mädel-Garcia, head of the Environment and Global Health team at the Permanent Mission of Mexico, Mariana, the UN Special Rapporteur on Toxics and Human Rights, and Richard, the Program Management Officer at the Minamata Convention Secretariat. And all these 3 speakers highlighted the relevance of the newly established Women's Caucus and once again reaffirmed their support. Next slide, please. And after the panel discussion, we held a brainstorming session with all participating delegates to explore potential future activities for the Women's Caucus. And in addition to direct advocacy activities, participants highlighted several key needs: better gender disaggregated data, more education and capacity building, and stronger support for implementation. And participants also emphasized the importance of involving women working in artisanal and small-scale gold mining as agents of change, so that we can learn from their experiences and good practices. And we then concluded the event by celebrating the launch together, as you can see here on the picture. And yeah, from the Women's Caucus, we would like to sincerely thank the Minamata Secretariat and the Geneva Environment Network for their support in making this event possible. And if you would like to watch the recording of the launch event, this is available on the website of the Geneva Environment Network via the link that I will now share with you in the chat. And to sum up, in my view, even though the number of the Women's Caucus members present on site was relatively small, the newly established Women's Caucus was able to achieve strong visibility at the Minamata COP6 for the need for gender equality through our statements and the launch event. And now with more time to prepare for the next COP, I'm really confident that we can build even stronger momentum to make Mercury history and to make it gender responsive. Next slide, please. And therefore, we need you in the Women's Caucus. Membership is open and free. And if you are interested in becoming a member, you can find more information about the Women's Caucus on the Minamata webpage or on the following webpage that I also share with you in the chat. Yeah, and I look very much forward to welcoming new caucus members and of course to collaborate with you in the month ahead. Thank you very much, and with this, back to you, Tina.
Thanks, Anna. And what we will do that is we will put a picture of the scan on the chat in case if we are going too fast. I'm going to wait for a few seconds if any one of you would like to take a screenshot of that one. Yes, and for a minute, and then we will also share this to the mailing list who have registered. So I do know that some of participants also have joined us later. So I'll give a moment. And yes, but we'll also share this to all the participants together with the presentations and relevant information documents. So thank you so much, Anna. We do have time. So before I want to get into a second quick rapid round of questions of what to do, what can we plan for 2026, let's hear it from our participants. So with that one, we have about, I would say, 10 minutes to be closing it properly. But I would give the floor to all of you for if you do have to raise your hand, or including the panelists, if you have any questions for a panelist to share. I will wait for a few minutes to see if I see any hands up. I'm trying to see all the... Okay, so please raise your hand if you would want to take the floor for anything, but I will definitely check, because there is one colleague here called 𝗀𝗋𝗶𝗹 saying that you had applied for the member and no further information about the events about this webinar. Let me do check, because if you did register, you should have been in the mailing list. So please send an email out to us. There is an email on the slide right now called info@women4biodiversity.org. Please just share your information when you sent the membership, and we will look into that. And if you are not there on the list, we shall definitely add you. Apologies if we did miss adding you on the list. This is the first event that we have organized for the Women's Caucus this year. So with that one, maybe for another 5 or 7 minutes, can I invite all the panelists to please come on the virtual floor with me? And for others, please take the, oh, nice, good to see everybody here. Yes, so as we have a few minutes and we have seen that there are no more questions, I wanted to also again go back to our panelists. One of the things that we've discussed, and this is what we had wanted to share more on an open discussion, was now that the COP has taken a decision and now we do have the MC 515 that has got a list of very concrete actions for the 2026 to 2027 duration of time. I want to also ask from your perspectives or work that you think that we could be building up for this year, if there is any reflection on that, including like from all of us. And I think maybe to get the conversation started, Lara, where do you see, like, how do you see some events that we could look into some of those activities for this year? I'll start with you first on that.
Yes, thank you. I mean, in terms of event, one comes to mind, and that would be the CBD COP, where in terms of membership maybe, but in terms of substance, there are some linkages between the Women's Caucus under the Minamata Convention and the one under the CBD, and also giving the experience that you have, Tina, and other members of the caucus may have. It will be interesting, at least for us, to see how we can maybe have some joint side events or events at the CBD, upcoming CBD COP, which I believe will be in October this year. And this will be something that we will be interested in doing, and maybe exploring whether we have similar interests and membership, and if we can, promote linkages between Mercury and biodiversity. I didn't mention it in detail, but COP6 also had a decision on the 𝗀cie𝗰𝗶𝗹 Protocol and Mercury. So I think would be an opportunity this year to further explore the linkages and create this shared space through our respective caucuses. So I think this is one thing that I would like to highlight in terms of upcoming events. Another thing that the only thing I would highlight is the ongoing process of reviewing the national action plans for ASGM. And now that we have these updated guidelines, and then several parties who have submitted NAPs are to conduct the reviews that have to be submitted every 3 years to the Secretariat. And this is an interesting or important moment where to look back at the implementation of the NAP and see if elements or strategies to protect vulnerable populations are indeed in place, or if they're missing, or if a strengthened implementation of those aspects is needed in the implementation of the NAPs. And there is a large GEF project that is starting, which is implemented by UNEP, among others, that is following the review of national action plans this year. And yes, let me stop here for now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lara. Yeah, I'm forget me, please add in those. First of all, I hope everybody can see the whiteboard. Can you see it? Okay, perfect, because I wasn't sure that I had put it on for everybody. So I'm just trying to quickly write on it, and hopefully everybody also has access to that. So this was just a quick, rapid thing of what possibly are avenues that we could look at, because also sharing that, like Anna shared, that the caucus is very new. And we are really happy to say that we've had wonderful support, both from Lara, also Richard is here online, to really take this forward. But we really cannot take this forward without all of you. So part of bringing this was, rehashing, revisiting what happened at the COP. And please also, there's no action, it's a small action. So please pick up a notebook. I'm sorry, I see somebody's trying with the lines. There are these, I'm going to just put the Post-its here. So if you, and I'm having difficulty in doing this. Yeah, if you go on the side, you should be able to have these posted. So please, I'm going to add them. So please feel free to even just share if there is something that you would like to do. Like say, for example, if you would want the caucus support to say that, okay, you know, we would want to organize a webinar and where the caucus could support us, we'll be happy to explore those opportunities. So if there is something that you would want to add here, please feel free, because as we are starting out here, oh, sorry, I can see Richard's hand. Yes, please, Richard, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Tina, and good day or good evening to everyone. I just wanted to follow up to just add on to what Lara has already said. A very crucial engagement point at the national level for caucus members or for anybody interested is indeed the review of the implementation of Article 7. So this is especially for parties that have national action plans on ASGM that they've submitted. The thing I wanted to add to what Lara has already said is that the amended sections of the National Action Plan guidance specifically has an elaboration on the need for stakeholder engagement. And there's a further elaboration on youth, on women, on indigenous peoples. Our colleagues at UNEP and also the Global Mercury Partnership will be releasing soon a technical document that elaborates on how to complete the review of the implementation of Article 7 reports. And in that long document, or that technical document, excuse me, there's a further elaboration, particularly on indicators, specific questions on ways to disaggregate data, that responds to the issue of gender, indigenous peoples, and other stakeholder engagements. So please take a look at the links I've shared on the chat. I hope you find these useful. And also, I think the list of parties that will be reviewing their national action plans will be released sometime soon. I believe there's 20 of them. Majority are in Africa. And please pay attention if you are following ASGM issues, and especially on gender-specific approaches and focus. Please take a look at the upcoming news on our website on which these parties are. And please be engaged and take active participation in the review. Thank you very much, Tina. Back to you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my mic was on. Thank you, Richard. No, absolutely. And I think I'll just share into this discussion is like we shared, the national reporting is a very important document at the national level. And just catching up back where Lara and Anna briefly also shared about the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So I would also encourage members to see that how can we really look at this process at the national level through more of a synergistic view. Why I'm saying is that together with the different various reporting mechanisms, there is also what parties, and the same parties, practically the same parties, are also preparing are their CBDs, NBSAPs, National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plans. And within that, there is a target that talks about, that is the KNGBF target 7, that talks about what is it called? With chemicals and pollution, right? Waste of chemical and pollutions. And responding to that, I think this is where the work of the Minamata Convention could also link up, is because parties do have to address those global targets into their national work. So I think if for the partners who are here, please do reach out to us, because what both, including the Secretariat and including, Anna and myself, we are here at the global advocacy space. And what we really want to do is, wherever, including with Richard, is provide the technical guidance or the technical information that is there and give it out as much as we can to all the national networks and organizations, to all of you, because you all are the organization, the people who are on the ground and can follow it up. So please do share any information that you may have. And like I said, no information is no information. We can always see those linkages. So, so if you are working on the report on the Minamata that Richard talked about, or have your networks, please, happy to connect and share the information that we already have existing. Sorry, I'm trying to kind of manage the notes here, but also looking at other upcoming events. One of the way that we start these discussions is because, of course, the lack of funding is these virtual meetings, virtual gatherings. And the hope is that we have them more interactive like this. So we have something that is more technical and then take the space to discuss what aspirations you may have. So do let us know also in the chat or follow it up with an email if there is a particular issue or a technical issue that you would want the Women's Caucus to address or to organize. So what we could also do that is if there is a theme that you would want for us to organize, we can definitely also, with the guidance of Secretariat, between Anna and myself, also see whether we can have those resource peoples to have these information webinars going forward. So this is one way that we are seeing that we could contribute until we meet, because COP will take some time. So also do let us know if you would want to partner and share and present your own work. That is also very much welcome. Another thing that I would want to also share on the side, because we are running out of time, we've got 2 minutes to the track. So please share as you're seeing the notes there, I'm talking here, is on the chat. There is also a quick feedback form. So we would also really appreciate if you could also take a moment or two or copy it before the meeting closes. And this is basically, again, a feedback form for us to go through to see how the session worked, did not work, was it clear, or is it something that you want us to change or add? So those feedbacks are always very helpful for us to make these sessions much better and much more inclusive for all of us, actually. With that one, before we have a minute, and I will keep this as we have this space open on a closing. So I'll include Richard too. So Lara, Yuyin, Mona, Anna, and Richard. You have 50 seconds, one key message that you would want to close this meeting with. So as we have the call, I will give the floor to Lara. 50 seconds.
Okay, it's 50 seconds. That's actually a lot. But I think, well, first of all, I invite you to join the caucus if you've not yet done so, and we will make sure that we are up to date with the last requests and we'll follow up on those. And I want to express my appreciation for joining us, for supporting us, for being interested in our work, for those of you who managed to come to COP, or those who connected to our COP online. And we'll try our best to, have more opportunities for you to join into our meetings and to share information about what we do. And hopefully, and please do not hesitate to reach out to me, to Richard, if you're involved in ASGM work, in the review of Article 7 or any other priorities. Please reach out to us, and we're always welcome to respond to any questions you have and see how we can support on our end. Thank you, with our limited resources, but thank you. That's all.
I would say with the limited resources, the outcome document of 515 is amazing. So do look at the infographic for the less amount of time. It's a really very informative resources. So Lara, that's another thing that was very helpful. So yeah, great work. So with that one, I'll go next to you and a quick reflection.
First, amend the Mercury Treaty to exclude use allowed of ASGM under Article 2, and then ban mercury trade for artisanal small-scale gold mining and gold mining. So that's it. Thank you.
Very strong message to take forward too. Thank you so much. Mona, you have the floor.
Yes, again, thank you so much for inviting me. This has been extremely informative for myself as well, always learning. And on that note of learning, I would just say, because I'm the knowledge management coordinator of the Planet Gold program, to share information no matter the outcome, because everything is a lesson that others can learn from. I think that's one thing that we've really been trying to encourage for the country project teams at Planet Gold, just that everything, we're able to learn from everything no matter what the outcome is. So that would be my takeaway. And join the Women's Caucus.
Thank you, Mona. Anna.
Yeah, thank you so much. I would also absolutely agree with you all, and I just wanted to highlight that in these very difficult times for gender equality issues, I think we can very easily highlight the so obvious interlinkages between Mercury and gender, and I think we should make use of that. And we have seen that there are so many opportunities or needs for exchange between all of us, and so there's a lot to do, a lot to work, and a lot to strengthen our experiences and exchange and to learn from each other, because I mean there are already a lot of projects and activities and material on gender and Mercury, especially on ASGM, and so let's move further with this. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anna. And because Richard, you are here, I cannot let you go without saying something also. So you have the floor.
Thanks so much, Tina. So I'll just repeat what I said earlier. This year, start of the review, the implementation of Article 7 will start, and it presents a critical juncture in which important course corrections can be done by parties through this review. And it's imperative that women's voices be heard, especially if these were ignored at the start or was not taken at the start of the process. So this is an important course correction that can be had, especially in terms of how it will impact the effectiveness evaluation, information on the effectiveness evaluation of the treaty. So please be engaged. Make sure your voices are heard, and make sure the important data that you possess, especially for gender approaches and gender-specific data, are taken into consideration in the review process. So I end with that. Please continue to visit our website and our partner websites for more information on the review of Article 7. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Richard, so very much. And with that one, I would really like to close. But before you go, we have to do first, I need to still thank our comms team, Suminazde, who has also helped me quite a lot with this. Also Anna and Pablo, who also helped with the flyers. And also our interpreters who is always challenging to keep up with people like me who talk very fast. So thank you so much for the interpretation team for joining us today. And with that one, I would also ask to take a photo. So we do need to see each other. So if you could put your camera on for a minute or less than a minute, so we can, so Sumina can take a photo and we can at least see each other for a moment.
Okay, the first is only the panelists. If everybody could smile, including Richard. Thank you. Just a second. Just bear with me for a while, please. Okay, wait. Oh, okay. All right. Everybody, a big smile. Thank you so much for joining us today. The first page. And now the second page. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely day, afternoon, evening, and we will be in touch. And my message is, please join us. It's an open space. Let's do this together. And with that, we shall see you again. We will share some more information, the recording of this webinar and the